They thought you would never walk away. They thought no matter how they treated you, you would stay. But what they didn't expect was the moment you finally let go. For a long time, you held on. You tried to fix things. You tried to understand them. You gave chances, stayed patient, and convinced yourself that things would change. You kept showing up, even when it started to hurt. And somewhere deep inside, you believed something simple. If I don't give up, this will work. But slowly something began to feel different. The effort felt one-sided. The connection felt unbalanced. And the more you gave, the less you felt valued. Still, you didn't leave right away. Because letting go isn't easy. When you've invested your time, your emotions, your energy, you kept hoping they would see your worth, that they would realize what you meant to them. But they didn't. And that's where the real conflict begins. Because while you were holding on, they were getting comfortable with your presence, comfortable with your patience, comfortable with the idea that you would always be there, no matter what. Most people never notice this shift, the moment where love turns into habit, where effort turns into expectation, where your presence becomes something they stop appreciating. Have you ever stayed longer than you should have, hoping someone would finally treat you the way you deserved? Here's the truth most people don't realize. The longer you hold on to something that isn't right for you, the more control you give away. You didn't realize it at the time, but every time you stayed, every time you ignored how you felt, something inside you was slowly wearing down. Until one day, it doesn't anymore. Something changes, quietly, deeply. And that's the moment everything begins to shift, because letting go doesn't just affect you, it affects them. But here's what no one tells you. Why does someone start losing control the moment you finally stop caring? Why do they suddenly react only after you've let go? Because the answer to that reveals a psychological truth most people never understand. And once you see it, you'll never look at letting go the same way again. Letting go doesn't happen in one moment. It builds through confusion, through questions you can't answer. You start noticing things that don't feel right, the way they respond, the way they pull away, the way your effort is no longer matched. And yet you hesitate. You tell yourself maybe it's just a phase. Maybe they're going through something. Maybe you just need to be more patient. So you stay. But inside, your mind begins to loop. You replay conversations. You go back to small moments. You search for meaning in things that once felt simple. Did I say something wrong? Did I change? Why does this feel different now? This is where the confusion grows, because when someone slowly disconnects from you, it doesn't feel like a clear ending. It feels like a puzzle with missing pieces, and your mind keeps trying to solve it. Most people never notice how exhausting this stage is. You look fine on the outside. You still show up. You still respond. But inside, you're overwhelmed, tired of thinking, tired of trying to understand something that doesn't make sense anymore. And then comes the emotional shock, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet realization. This isn't what it used to be. And that realization changes you. When trust begins to fade, it doesn't just hurt your feelings. It changes how you see people. It makes you question your instincts. It makes you doubt the very connection you once believed in. But here's the deeper truth. Your mind is not just breaking. It's adjusting. You begin to notice patterns you ignored before. The inconsistency, the lack of effort, the way your presence was slowly being taken for granted. You didn't realize it at the time, but something inside you had already started to shift. Because pain has a purpose, it forces you to see what you were avoiding. It reveals what you were trying to hold together. And slowly, that awareness begins to grow stronger than your attachment. But pain has a hidden effect, and this is where the story begins to change. That awareness doesn't stay quiet. It begins to guide your decisions, even before you fully understand it. You start noticing how much you've been giving, how often you've ignored your own feelings just to keep things together. And for the first time, you pause, not to fix it, not to chase it, but to see it clearly. This is where emotional awareness begins to take control. You realize that holding on isn't helping anymore, that the more you try to keep things the same, the more you lose yourself in the process, and that realization is powerful. So you begin to change, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, in ways that matter. You start setting boundaries. You stop answering every message right away. You stop saying yes when it drains you. You stop overgiving to someone who stopped appreciating it. And then comes the part they don't expect. You choose silence, not because you don't care, but because you finally understand that your energy has value, and not everyone deserves access to it. Most people never notice how strong this moment is, because it doesn't look like strength. It looks like distance, like calm, like stepping back without explanation. And that's exactly what confuses them. They expected anger. They expected emotional messages. They expected you to chase them, question them, demand answers. But something else happened instead. You became still. You became clear. You stopped feeding the connection that was slowly fading anyway. And that quiet shift changes everything. Because when you stop giving your energy, when you stop reacting the way they're used to, the dynamic breaks. They can feel it. Something is different. Something is missing. Something they once controlled is no longer within their reach. You didn't realize it at the time. But this is the exact moment where the balance of power shifts back to you, not through force, but through self-respect. And when someone loses access to your energy, something unexpected begins to happen. At first, they can't quite explain it. They just feel the difference. Your energy isn't the same. The attention they were used to is gone. The way you used to respond, to show up, to stay consistent, it's no longer there. And that's when the absence begins to speak. Without you there to reassure them, they start to notice things more clearly. The way they treated you, the way they got comfortable, the way they assumed you would always stay. But now, you're not playing that role anymore, and it unsettles them. Because absence has a strange psychological effect. When something is always there, it feels normal, easy to ignore, easy to take for granted. But the moment it's gone, the mind starts to focus on it. It becomes louder in silence than it ever was in presence. Most people never realize this until it's too late. They confuse consistency with permanence. They believe your patience means you'll never leave. They assume your kindness has no limits. But when that illusion breaks, reality hits differently. They start replaying moments, the way you cared, the way you stayed, the things they overlooked without a second thought, and slowly something builds inside them. Regret. Not loud, not obvious, but persistent. A quiet realization they can't escape. You were there, and I didn't value it. And here's the hardest part for them. They can't undo it, because by the time they see your value clearly, you've already changed. You're no longer the person who gives without limits. You're no longer the person who waits to be appreciated. And that shift creates distance they can't control anymore. They may try to reach out, to reconnect, to regain what they lost. But something feels different now. There's a boundary they didn't see before, a calm in you they don't understand. Most people never see this coming. They think they have time. They think they can return whenever they want. But growth doesn't wait, and neither does self-respect, because while they were taking your presence for granted, you were becoming someone who no longer depends on it. But the most surprising part isn't their regret. It's who you become after the pain. And this is where everything changes for you, not because they came back, not because they finally understood, but because you no longer need them to. The weight you once carried is gone. The constant thinking, the overanalyzing, the emotional pull, it slowly fades, and in its place, something stronger begins to take root. Emotional strength. You start to see things clearly now. You understand that your value was never defined by how someone treated you. It was defined by how you allowed yourself to be treated, and how you chose to respond. And now, you respond differently. You don't chase, you don't overgive, you don't ignore your own needs just to keep someone else comfortable. This is self-respect, not loud, not aggressive, just calm, steady, and unshakable. It shows in the way you walk away from what drains you, in the way you protect your time, your energy, your peace. Most people never reach this point because it requires letting go, not just of them, but of the version of you that kept hoping they would change. And that's not easy. But once you do, something unexpected happens. You feel free. There's no need for revenge, no desire to prove anything, no emotional reaction left for them to control. Just a quiet detachment that keeps you grounded no matter what they do next. And here's the truth that most people learn too late. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't proving someone wrong. It isn't making them regret losing you. It's becoming completely unbothered. Because while they are stuck trying to understand what changed, you've already moved forward, stronger, wiser, in control of yourself in a way you never were before. You didn't lose them, you found yourself, and that changes everything. So take a moment and reflect. Have you ever grown stronger after someone underestimated you? Have you ever reached a point where you stopped needing someone who once felt so important? If you have, share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else see their situation more clearly and start their own transformation. Because sometimes letting go isn't the end of the story. It's where your real strength begins.